morning to all the Auburn fans out there. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. We're talking about Auburn football. Go ahead and like the video, comment, click the bell twice so you can get all the notifications. Oh, man, it's a crazy world out here. 6 feet distance, guys. We got to keep the 6 feet. As a matter of fact, when I go to certain like gas stations and places of small quarters, I don't know if that's quite 6 feet between the X's. All right, so I'm seeing a real distorted version of 4.5, maybe 5. But I'm like, man, I'm 6 feet, kind of, sort of. And if I laid down flat, I think I would kind of come in between the X's. So let's go ahead and spread this thing out correctly. Make sure you're wearing your face masks out there to be safe and to get us back to as close to normalcy as possible. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. Of course, I mean, this has been a different time. I mean, each day brings a different set of a new normal. And, you know, I have this ESPN app where, actually it's a great app because you can actually watch games on ESPN on the go. And that actually helps me out because I move around a lot. So it helps me keep up with at least the scores, and I might be able to catch some highlights. Or maybe even in a quiet spot, be able to actually watch the whole game without being in the comfort of my own home. As a matter of fact, in between, say, a break at work, so to speak, I may be able to catch a couple of minutes of the game or maybe sit the phone on my desk and actually watch the game that way. But either way, it's an app that now gives notifications when there is actually breaking news in the sports world. And right now, though, that breaking news kind of makes me nervous because I'm like, is this the one? Is this the notification where they're actually canceling college football for the season? And not, you know, college football is such it just, on so many levels, it's ingrained in the fabric, especially if you live in the South. Talk about college football all the time. You talk about either your Auburn Tigers, your Florida State Seminoles. You talk about the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. You talk about Georgia, Florida, and all those different teams. And the idea of that cultural piece of the Deep South, especially Southeastern Conference Power 5 football, is really just a painful thought, okay? And it is definitely, when we reverse this thing back to Auburn, has definitely had an impact on Auburn's recruiting. This time last year, Auburn was around the 30th recruiting ranking. Now, that's kind of a normal trend for Auburn because usually Auburn starts off super slow with their recruiting and then has this huge jump, which we're going to explain here in a little bit, and why this COVID-19 can potentially be very impactful. I'm talking about detrimentally impactful to some aspects of Auburn's recruiting tactics. Over the last few years, I think Auburn has had some pretty effective recruiting classes. A lot of those guys are now transferring over to having careers in, possible careers in the NFL. They've left their mark at Auburn. And a big congratulations to those guys. Because, now that I've kind of gotten into this, I get a real kick out of seeing a player progress from the high school level and what they were projected to do. Because most of your Power Fives, your 5 stars and your 93 plus, inching close to that 5-star, that 4-star recruit, it's really interesting to see how that rating transfers to their ability to be drafted in the NFL. Because with a 5-star recruit, they say, all right, this guy is going to be an immediate impact player on a Power 5 team and is probably going to be drafted within the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. We have seen this happen time and time again, and it's great to see it happen real time. Auburn has done a great job of recruiting, especially this past year. I think Auburn has done a much more educated job in recruiting, not only for talent, but also in building a solid roster. Because in order to be able to compete with the teams like LSU and Georgia and Florida and Alabama, you need guys that, let's just say that run by DJ Williams. I think it was a great run. But let's just say it was Tank Bigsby that took off like that. That's a touchdown versus a field goal. I can't remember whether Auburn actually scored a touchdown on that drive or not, but that's a touchdown to where you don't have to worry about scoring in the red zone, which Auburn struggled mightily with. Or let's say even a taller cornerback like Marco DeMio. That's the difference between Justin Herbert being able to find a 6'6" tight end being guarded by Javaris Davis versus a Marco DeMio who is actually right there to pose more of a challenge to a play like that. Recruiting helps you with those games of inches. Those are the areas that Auburn definitely wants to take advantage of in the recruiting processes, is even size as it relates to the comparability to compete against, say, the Jamar Chases and the Justin Jeffersons of the world, wide receiver-wise at LSU. Big shout-out to LSU, great football team. 2019 national champions. But we look at the impact recruiting-wise for Auburn. And, of course, all teams are going through this. No face-to-face contact. No ability for the young athletes to potentially visit the college, get a feel for where they're going, get a feel for the people, get a feel for the student body, the culture of the actual school, what happens around the school. Everything's closed for the most part, especially in the South. Now, Georgia and Tennessee, they're starting to open some things up to where you can do a few things socially. You can go out to eat, dine in, social distancing still in place. But for the most part, I think Alabama especially is still on lockdown, still limited as to what you can do. So it gives the players have to look at this from a almost imaginary perspective. What am I getting into? All the students are quarantined, taking classes online. So I don't know what I can't get a feel for what's going on. There are no parties going on. No, because I know when we used to I was going to Auburn, we used to have summer parties all the time. As a matter of fact, this is the time of year, typically at Auburn. Well, actually, we were on quarters. So this is the time when, let's say, fraternities and sororities, their new lines are starting to come out with their what they call probate shows. And fraternities having their week, where it's just a week-long celebration. All of that's out. Camp War Eagle, none of that is going on. So there's definitely a quiet atmosphere surrounding Auburn. So you can't, a prospective athlete can't get a feel of, well, what is this college like? And the biggest thing that Auburn is missing, and is probably going to miss, I just don't see in 30 days how Big Cat Weekend is going to happen. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Big Cat Weekend. Big Cat Weekend, just imagine some guys sitting around playing spades. And there's a guy at the table that slams the big joker down at the right time, shuts the whole spades game down. That's what Big Cat Weekend is like for Auburn. Recruiting effort. All of it builds up to this big weekend that usually takes place last of May, 1st of June, where all of the prospects, all of the guys, some of the guys who have even committed, some guys who are suspects because they really don't want to come to Auburn, but they're like, well, hey, we can go down to Auburn for the free food, the free camaraderie, the free love, the attention. Great weekend. I would go. I don't care where I was going to school. I would go to a Big Cat Weekend just to see, I want to make sure I'm right before I make a full commitment, because what a lot of folks don't know is that Auburn is actually a pretty good school in and of itself, and also a relatively successful athletic program who could put a little more money in their facilities, hint, hint, but storied program in a lot of ways nonetheless. However, the typical kid doesn't know. You ask, even in Georgia, you talk about Auburn, they're like, oh, okay, now, they got to kind of think about it. Versus, say, the University of Alabama, you already know what it is. Michigan, you know what that is. Florida, Oregon. Those are your branded schools, so to speak, that have their imprint to where you ask the typical kid about Clemson. Oh, yeah, they won a national championship. Auburn, for the most part, they got to think, oh, that's where Cam Newton went. Oh, wow, that's where Bo Jackson went, right? So they have to kind of think about it and then kind of think of a good play. Oh, okay, but he played basketball, though, Charles Barkley, but he played basketball. So that's where we're at with Auburn football, and that's why Auburn needs a weekend like Big Cat Weekend so that kids can get some real familiarity of what they're getting into if they decide to come to Auburn. Auburn has actually flipped some guys. Auburn actually has gotten some guys that were kind of on the fence, but once they got to Auburn for that particular weekend, they're like, okay, this is where I want to be. I like these guys. I like the coaches. I like the culture of the football team. So that's why I think, even if they got to stretch that thing, let's just say start to open some things up, if it's possible, say in late, mid to late June, with maybe if the social distancing thing obviously will probably still be in place, if they're able to find a way to have this, like I said, it's going to be so hard considering what's going on, but it's so impactful to Auburn recruiting. All right, guys, let me know what you think about this video. Let's go ahead and keep the positivity going. If you're in a restricted state, please follow your state's regulations. Don't go to the beach. Don't do these ridiculous house parties. Make sure you keep yourself safe so that if and when the future does present a college football season, you will be either around to see it, for one, or you'll be healthy enough and can breathe to actually watch it. So, with that in mind, we're going to sign off here for now. Really love you guys. Love the support. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. My name is Kennard Vernon Stewart. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.